have you both. I am thrilled to have you guys, both of you guys, for different reasons. And the point of connection is the world of jazz. I know Tammy has to get back to her things at hand. So we're going to kind of jump in. It is a round table kind of conversation. So, questions are posed and anybody can kind of answer them. And it is indeed a conversation. It's not a traditional interview format. And we just like to have fun with it. So I'm glad that we, kind of broke the ice with trying to get these mics working. But, for people who don't know Tammy, and she has performed around the world, the thing that got my attention was that she was named 2020 Chicagoan of the Year in Jazz. And what a great honor. And I know that you've been named Jazz Singer of the Year a number of other times, but, during the pandemic to have that kind of honor bestowed upon you, that just really stuck out for me. And, I know you don't know Johnny, but you all both have Midwest roots. Well, you're from the South, but and he spent some time in Chicago too. So,
oh, wow.
So there's this Midwest connection, this jazz connection, and everybody, it's such great music. Everybody thinks about New York and LA or New Orleans for Dixieland jazz and even gospel if you think about Bishop Paul Morton. But this is an interesting time because as little as 5 years ago, the record business people were writing off jazz like it was dead. With the decline in CD sales and vinyl not really back yet, they were like, it's losing ground at like 2% a year. And pretty soon it's going to be something that's only in museums. And then streaming came along. And all of a sudden they realized, because the digital data is there, all the insights are there, and it grew a massive amount. And all of a sudden, streaming gave access to a whole new generation of people who didn't have access to it. And now it's growing again. So you guys are part of a world of one of the, success stories of the streaming era. So, it was interesting. I remember a few years ago, I was complaining to people that the RAAA data always said that rock was the #1 genre in the country. And that might have been true based upon, sales of catalog and things of that nature. But as soon as streaming came along, I think we lost him. As soon as streaming came along, hip hop was crowned the #1 genre. And many people who had been watching trends for a long time knew that was the case. So, the tech will definitely let you know what the real deal is. So, Miss Tammy, how did you feel up on stage on Sunday at the Hyde Park Jazz Festival singing your Yes Mahalia set? How did that go?
Wow, I cannot tell you the energy that I felt on stage after so long during the pandemic, being away from the fans, being away from the lovers of this music. It was really so edifying, right? And then of course to be celebrating the music of this amazing Chicagoan Miss Mahalia Jackson. It was really exciting. The people fed me, and I feel like the music fed them as well.
That was a great response. How did you come up with this idea of wanting to do this show in the first place?
Actually, I've been doing Mahalia Jackson since 1996. I've been doing a tribute to her overseas. I'd never done it in the United States. And in 2017, I decided to do something different, and I took my jazz rhythm section over with me, and all of the music just kind of was turned on its head, and there started to be this fusion between the jazz and the gospel that was really unexpected. And so because I am a lover of big band, it was a natural progression to me, because the rhythm section just wasn't enough. You know, the sonic energy of a big band was the one thing that could really support and serve that one of a kind voice of Mahalia.
Right.
And so I came up with the idea to do a Mahalia big band tribute concert. But, you know, that was, you know, I just had that idea at my kitchen table. And then I got a phone call from a producer in Israel who wanted to do a tribute to Mahalia Jackson. And I said, well, I've got an idea. And he bought it hook, line, and sinker and connected me with a brilliant young man in New York by the name of E.L. Vilner, who is from Israel. And so he and I combined energies to create some amazing arrangements that celebrate the purest form of gospel and the purest form of jazz.
That's so dope. You know, I gotta say something. We always have, this is called music, media, and culture. So we do deep dives on all kinds of different things. It's totally cool now, but I remember when I was a kid, and you ask my grandparents, my father, my uncle, who actually played with Count Basie for over a decade, jazz was like not, you know, in the world of gospel, it was like considered the devil's music. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're asking that question. That was the one thing that I was very specific about navigating, because I grew up in Kojic, Church of God in Christ, Protestant, very traditional. And I knew from my studies of Mahalia that she did not brook the secular. Right. So she in no way, shape, or form would allow her voice to be lent to secular music. She said, my voice was given to me to God to only celebrate his grace and the sacred. And so as I was crafting these arrangements with EL, we were very mindful that that through line was always reverent. And so when you did hear this music as the layperson, you were very aware that you were placed in the center of the sacred. Right.
Right. That is, well, you have a gift with that. See, Johnny on your other screen over here is an arranger. So I know he knows what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And Johnny is an arranging fool. I had the pleasure of meeting Johnny when he was a young buck. It was 1995, and I was thrust into the deep end of the pool at Motown Records. And they said, we got this group that we want you to work with. It's called Impromptu. And I was like, oh, I like the name. Let me hear if I like this music. And I just fell in love with their music. I fell in love with their creativity, but also Johnny's professionalism. That's one of the things you guys both have in common as well. You're so on it. And it's such a pleasure to be able to work with people who both hemispheres of their brain are firing on all cylinders, you know. But I just kind of wanted to kind of ask Johnny to comment on what she's talking about in terms of, you know, the sacred and the secular and how the arrangement can support that.
Comment on that, but I'd like to go back, if I may, on the comment that you made about jazz music dying a few years ago and then now resurrecting. Mm-hmm. And I must admit that, you know, terrestrial radio in all the cities across America, they were closing down, particularly the contemporary jazz, smooth jazz radio stations. Mm-hmm. Goes down in San Francisco, Cleveland, just like everywhere, LA. And I remember I was just like you, Thornell. I was like, you know, this is like ready to crash. And then, you know, this radio station, Sirius XM, came along with the format streaming. And it hasn't been that long. And I must admit, you know, I took 2017 was my first like smooth jazz. 2018 it came out. My So Hot album. Hired a radio promoter. Got on Sirius XM with my song Hot Fun in the Summer with Najee. And bottom line is like I'm making more money now that I made when I was on Motown Records and radio. I'm just now from streaming, and now Sirius XM is kind of like Tom Joyner was, a syndicated radio station where if he plays the record one time, the whole nation hears it. So that's what with Sirius XM. And so I just really want to just comment on that, is that, yeah, I think that jazz is alive. I think it is alive. I think, and I think that leveled out now. More people than ever can get their records on the radio, get it heard, and make some money. So I just kind of want to kind of throw that in there. I do think that it's it is alive. It is alive, for especially I think our peers, because they're not really listening to the hip hop and blah 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 blah. They want to relax, and you know, sometimes instrumental music is spinning more than vocal music on this particular format. But I did want to just kind of, yeah, it's alive. I mean, you know, contemporary jazz is alive. Now to your question,
I just wanted to add something, Thornell. Jason, I'm so glad that you talked about all the different genres and how they're kind of folding into each other, right? I think that as these young people use more actual instrumentation, rhythm section, and of course they've been sampling Coltrane and they've been sampling old heads jazz for years, you know, Diggable Planets and all of these things. But as the music that gets on the streaming and more people get access to the music, then the kids are starting to listen and hear the music and then go down the rabbit hole trying to say, well, that's a great horn part, but who is Coltrane? Well, that's a great, you know, vocal grab, but who is, you know, Ella Fitzgerald? Who is, you know, Miles Davis? And so those things are constantly blossoming. One of my dearest mentors is Elise Clairbout, who's the president of Strayhorn Songs Publishing. Billy Strayhorn's music is over 100 years old. Wow. Currently, right now in 2021, there is a Broadway show. There's a movie. There has been 2 plays. There is, you know, young people reaching out to the publishing company who want to reimagine his music. And many people have written the epitaph of jazz, and they've all been incorrect. This music is as vibrant today as when it was first created. And this young generation is grabbing hold of it. And the biggest example of that is when Esperanza Spalding beat out Justin Bieber for Song of the Year. I think it was maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago. The bottom line is that if you put it on the airwaves, people will drink from that well because they want something new and vibrant, right? And the same old isn't just gonna work. It's not gonna work.
Well, that was a soundbite. I love it. And you're absolutely correct. And that's part of what people learned, what the industry learned was you can't just look at sales data. There's other ways that people are finding the music. Yes. And that's what's so important, you know, through these other platforms, whether it be through live shows or plays or you know, in this case, streaming, the audience found it. And I think that's fantastic.
Well, the little reality of this is on streaming, catalog is the most listened to.
66%, yes.
But it hasn't hit a lot of the younger generation yet, especially for jazz. Mm-hmm. So you need artists like Kendrick Lamar to get Kamasi Washington or somebody like that to actually start playing on his albums. Otherwise, you know, the youth today isn't really, unfortunately, they're not really kicked into jazz unless they go to a school like Berkeley or USC, where it's part of the program, right? You know, and I said in the other episodes, I almost think as if jazz needs a rebrand as America's first punk rock. You know, and, you know who these guys were and what they did, and
that's good. I never heard that one before, JC.
That's a heck of a rebrand. That is a heck of a rebrand.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, really was. You're talking about secular music versus non-secular music. You're talking about some of the greatest jazz artists playing Afrobeat before it was even popular. Some of the most popular jazz artists playing Brazilian music before it was really popular. We lost Dr. Lonnie Smith yesterday.
Yes,
Right?
Oh my God.
And
Lonnie
and
Smith
he was
died.
just a master of playing the Hammond, and some of the stuff he did was just really genius. And that's the kind of stuff for me that needs to be put in the forefront for music, and is kind of almost like a rebrand, and not make it as niche as it used to be. But then you have artists like Salt, from the UK, that have like really dug in and kind of embrace that sound and kind of throwing it out there.
Well, before Tammy has to go, I did want to bring us back to this merging of gospel and jazz. I'm going to put this on the screen. Hopefully it's backwards. But there's this really wonderful compilation record called As One Gospel Inspirational Jazz on a label called Only for Jesus. And Tammy had the opportunity to sing How I Got Over. And I'm here to tell you, it is really good. And I know that everybody's excited about presenting it to the world and stuff like that. But like I know Kenneth Brown from Only for Jesus has been dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Ida and stuff like that. So you have been the mouthpiece for this project and Only for Jesus. Talk a little bit about how that came together for you, your recording of How I Got Over. I just think it's fantastic. If you have anybody's listening, have an opportunity, there'll be a link in the description and you can click through and listen.
Talking about Only for Jesus it really fills my spirit, because when you think about how God orders your steps, that is exactly what happened. I happened to be in Chicago, and Ken also being from Chicago, happened to be in town, and he saw me sing at a religious event, and we've known each other since we were children. Right. And he said, Tammy, I didn't know you sang gospel. I said, oh no, I don't sing gospel. It's something that I love. I'm standing next to these amazing gospel singers in my church, and so I sing. And so he was adamant. I started this record label and I really want to present you. I really think that you would be wonderful. And I just threw up all these different reasons why, all these different countermeasures, why I couldn't do it. And he said, listen, come to Mississippi. I was like, I will never be in Mississippi. That just wouldn't happen. That I'll never be there. And so finally he said, now this is over the course of a year. And so he's like, tell me what your schedule is going to be. I said, well, I have to do a gig in New York. I'm going to do LA. And then I have to go to this conference in New Orleans. And he said, and he starts to laugh. He said, I'll pick you up at the airport. I'm 45 minutes from New Orleans. And I was like, okay. So I come to the conference. I'll come early. The moment I arrived, the spirit was so powerful. The music that they were producing with this young man, KJ, just brilliant, like a young Stevie Wonder. The music that they were producing, it was so inspirational. And right in that moment, in 2 days, I wrote 3 songs. We came up with this arrangements for How I Got Over. The whole being very, as I said, raised very strict religious. Even the arrangement I had to get used to because I was very old fashioned. Yeah. They put in the finger snaps.
Yeah.
They put in the finger snaps and I was like, oh, I don't think the mothers of the church would like that kid. And he just started laughing. And he said, Tammy, don't worry about it. He said, you don't leave it to me. I'll take care of it. I said, well, I'm gonna tell them to call you when they hit those finger snaps. But I love the arrangement. I love being able to share my testimony because How I Got Over is really a song that's gotten me through a lot of really trying times. And I feel like I'm not the only one. And so I hope that people feel that the Spirit is speaking to them through this song.
Do you think your religious background helps you understand Mahalia a lot more than someone who doesn't, because she's singing straight from faith?
That's an interesting question. I think that what my religious background does is allow me to give true deference to her approach in her music. I feel very strongly that there are plenty of people that do covers of songs and they just do them their way. But my religious background allows me the space to present it the way I think Mahalia would be pleased.
Okay.
In an ancestral connection.
Right.
I could not see myself doing a house music remix of Mahalia. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I could.
Look, I'm not a religious guy,
Soon
but
I will be done. Soon I will be done. Soon
What
I
did you
will
say,
be
Jason?
done.
what I was saying is I'm not a religious guy, but when I listen to Mahalia, I feel something that I normally wouldn't feel, because to me, and I think a lot, especially with a lot of singers from like Al Green or Marvin Gaye, Sam Cooke, who all were in the church originally, Aretha Franklin, and sang gospel music and that before they transitioned over to American soul. There was something about a strong belief, their own personal belief, that is just so strong to me that it makes I'm so intrigued with their sound and their style, and I don't know, it's hard to put to words. And I think that's what the term faith really is because there is no real words for it. It's just a strong belief. And I know my first experience with Mahalia was "Take My Hand, Precious Lord," and I was just floored with that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
to this day, it's probably my favorite gospel song ever done.
Absolutely. And so that's the thing that I really feel a connection to, because my voice teacher, Lena McLean here in Chicago, is the niece of Thomas Dorsey. And Thomas Dorsey and Mahalia Jackson created Precious Lord, which transformed, the sonic presentation of gospel music, right? And so I feel that through line straight from Mahalia to Thomas Dorsey to Miss McLean to me, right? And so there's a responsibility there, and there is a feeling there, like you just said, I don't know how to express it. That tells you that feeling, it's a chakra level, right? And so whereas with me, it represents, Church of God in Christ or Christianity. For another person, it could be a Buddhist connection. For another person, it could be an Islamic connection, right? But the connection is there through the music, through the art form, And so, that says a lot. That says a lot about, the level of spirituality that the music can possess.
But that's exactly what it is, without it actually having a tag to it.
Exactly.
Johnny Britt, did you grow up in church?
Sir.
You said, yes, sir.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay. So, what was your favorite gospel song growing up?
Oh, we used to sing when I started singing in the church, and I want to kind of question that was to Tammy. For me, and I guess we're certainly all different. I think that there's something that we call the anointing, the spirit that comes over one, especially an artist, a singer, when they are, when like the spirit hits them, or when it's just like, kind of like what kind of couldn't describe certain whatever he was saying about gospel music. And the only thing I could just say is when it is sincere, when it is real, when the Holy Spirit is really involved. It's not just a song, and I don't think it's not just, it's supernatural is what I'm trying to say, because God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and this music that we were referring to is a spirit music, and I would, since we are talking about gospel and jazz, Coltrane was spiritual. I mean, that's spiritual, and I attest. I'm in, you know, I'm an artist. You know, I couldn't do it without the Spirit coming over me the way I do what I do. You know, I get lost, and when I get lost, it is the Holy Spirit. You know, I have a song called "There's Nobody" that's up for a Grammy nomination consideration, and it's one song. And I promised to the Lord that I was going to sing this song at every show that I do. And I'm an R&B singer and I'm a jazz trumpet player. So my show is R&B jazz. But when I do that song, drunk, they laughing, they can be talking. But when I sing that song, I'm not singing it to them. Mm-hmm. I'm singing it to the Lord. And I'm telling you,
wow,
Jason and Thornell, the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
Whether you are a believer or not, you feel it because it's going upward. And I'm just refreshed because it's scary. Like, Lord, do you want me to sing this song in front of these people who don't believe? Or yes. And when I do it, I've never gotten a boo. I've never gotten thrown at me. I have got, this lady told me she just had back surgery or something, and she just told me that it all lifted when I sang that song. Check it out. It's on Mo Jazzin' album. The song is called "There Is Nobody," and the only thing I know is it's something special about that song. You can call it what you want, but it's not an ordinary song. I sing it. It's not an ordinary performance. So, you know, that's in regards to your question, Thornell. Am I religious? Was I raised in a church? I will tell you this. And I know that the Spirit of the Lord lives within me. But I know I dig deep in the well, you know, when I'm especially singing that particular.
Mm-hmm. You know, Mr. Britt, it's really interesting that you should say that. When I was touring and doing the Mahalia Jackson tour, you know, initially I was young. It was a show, right? And so I'm singing these songs. This is the show. I wasn't, you know, it wasn't my plan. But just like you said, somebody from the audience, as I was traveling, they said, I'm an atheist. And because of your song, I feel this connection to God, and it stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, wow, this is a message. This is a ministry. I have to take this so much more seriously. I have to feel a sense of responsibility when I'm out here exchanging this energy like that. You know, it has power. So that was really touching what you said about, you know, in that moment when you sing that song, it's you and God. That was so touching.
It's poignant. And
I just want to lastly, I just really want to say there's a difference. A show and a performance. What we're talking about here is just on another level, and it's hard. I can't describe. It is just another level of the spirit of, you know, whatever you want to call it. So, and I do think, and the last thing I was going to say is, I'm a musician, but the musician who really understands jazz, because I believe that jazz is the greatest music in the world to me personally, because it is on such a high level. The improv is the whole in college in order to play at a high level. If you combine that with gospel, that not just playing the notes, but who really understands what that is, when you bring those two together, and that is a lethal combination. I know it. I'm not talking about just one side. I'm talking about one musician can really think they are dynamic. They are dynamic, and I would say that's the same as for singers as well as musicians. So I think and the last thing I'm gonna say, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say, the days are different. You know, back in the day, my mother, my grandmother, yeah, it was the devil's music, and it is, you know, nothing has changed, but it is okay, you know, for Tammy to sing Mahalia Jackson in a jazz club with a big band. You know, she's not Mahalia, she's a different generation. It's a new day. So as long as the spirit, she's carrying that spirit and that torch, it will touch, and it's supposed to touch people outside the church. It's supposed to. It's not just supposed to be for church folks.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, Tammy, I know you have to get back to getting on the mic there. So we want to thank you so much for being part of this today.
I am so thrilled. This is really an amazing moment for me. I want to thank Thornell and Allison and the Ovation Agency for their support coming out of the pandemic like this. As musicians, you know, it's almost like they are gifting my career and my music back to me, right? You know, I've been in sequester, I've been writing music, and so to be in partnership with such amazing people is just really exciting. I want to thank you guys so much for allowing me to spend some time, just a little bit with you tonight. And I cannot wait to continue to hear all of your amazing music. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Tammy.
How I got over.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Johnny, your insights are so on point, but I expect that from you. You've got such a rich, diverse background. I feel like I could throw you in the deep end of the pool with like heavy metal rockers, and you'd come out them being fans of yours.
It's funny because I just did a movie with Brad Pitt.
Brad Pitt, I'm jealous.
And he was yeah.
Oh, that's right.
I was playing trumpet, jazz trumpet, and Flea was one of the actors. Flea from the
Red Hot Chili
Chili
Peppers. Yeah.
Yeah, the Chili Peppers, yeah. And Flea, it was funny because, you know, man, you know, Flea come over to me, and this cat is a jazz cat. I mean, he knows jazz.
Yeah, Flea actually, his favorite,
Ago.
his favorite jazz musician and mine as well is Charles Mingus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I know. No, when I say I talking about, he was talking to me, and I was like, man, who's that? Red Hot Chili Peppers. I said, okay, cool. But he, you know, he knew what he. It was great.
Well, this takes a little pressure off of me because I only go back to 1995 with you, but I think it's cool that Jason has met you in under different circumstances. Why don't you tell that story, Jason?
I don't even remember that. It's been so long.
Do you remember, Johnny?
Because I've done so much, Jason, you're gonna have to refresh my memory, bro.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't remember where we met. It was I'll have to think about that.
Neither of you can remember, but that's how it usually goes. You meet people, and you know you have to rack your brain. You just know at a certain point you were in each other's lives, which is a beautiful thing. You know, it was exciting. I was excited that Jason was excited that you were going to come on and talk to us today. So I'm happy to have you here. So,
okay, Thornell, with you. Again, I want to thank the Ovation. I want to thank you guys, the Ovation Agency, for being my friend and having me on your program. I do want to talk about my for your considered career going for this year, if that's okay, Thornell.
Yeah, we were about to get into that. I wanted to start with the narrative of how the pandemic affected you with your music, and how last year you did a special song, and now this year you're doing another special song. So I want to go all the way back to your creation of the Mojazz record.
Yeah.
I know where it was from, Johnny. When
Okay.
I worked at Elias Arts, the agency in Santa Monica.
Remember?
That was like that was 2012, 2011.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember that.
I'm actually looking at old emails.
Absolutely.
I don't remember what you were doing.
Sure, I remember that.
But you do. And let's see. Our last
I was singing.
You were singing, right? And you had an 818. You had an 818 area code.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've been singing jingles and movies and stuff like that.
That's where it was. I think that's God. It's been.
Let me jump.
Yeah. Do you
I just wanted. That's okay. It's cool, but yeah, Thornell. I've always said this story in Chicago, and it had to be 50 degrees below zero or 80 degrees below zero. This was Valentine's Day because I did a Valentine's Day show. My and it was so cold in Chicago. And as soon as we got back to LA, it was final. The pandemic had officially hit. Ain't nobody going nowhere. All shows were canceled. I remember I blocked out on my calendar, finished the Mojazz album, because I was doing it in between coming in and out of town for shows. So I basically spent months finishing the Mojazz album, which I'm extremely proud of. The song that you're referring to is when it really got heavy with the pandemic. I wrote the song "Hold On." Mm-hmm. Still believe it's a strong, but when we did it, and Thornell, you were on the campaign, it was just what was happening. Anyway, fast forward. This album has been very successful. I had #1 record with Mojazz in the title track, and it featured Mojazz, and that was the first single, Special Guest with Norman Brown, Mojazz, and second single also hit The Way I Feel with my friend Mary Meadows on saxophone. Coming around here to the third single hit, Let's Get Down Tonight. We had like 2.5 million listeners every week on that song. And then we came out with #4, doing well in the charts right now, this Jazz Moves. And then we just recently dropped, then I just wrote this song. It's not on the Mojazz album. It's called because I have a brand new book called The Soloist that's coming out next month. I'm very proud of it. We've been working on it for 2 years. I have a great and after one of our reading sessions, she came up to me and she says, "Johnny, I have this idea called Peace Officer." And I just wrote it down. I was busy, wasn't doing anything. She said, "I don't know if you can do anything with it." And then the following day, which was a Sunday, and I wrote the song Peace Officer, just like I wrote Hold On during the pandemic. So this happened right after, the big
the Derek Chauvin trial.
I wrote Peace Officer. Yeah. So I wrote Peace Officer. I stopped everything I was doing promotion-wise, and I wrote Peace Officer. Started recording it Monday, and by Friday, I had all the musicians on it, arranged it, mixed it, and mastered it. And we got work, and we got the video, the whole thing. And thank you, Thornell, Jamal Warner, to do spoken word on the piece, and that song is up for, for your consideration. It's our first for your consideration song. Our next for your consideration song is the current single that just came out last week, which is called Love's Calling. Okay. two songs that are totally different. On Love's Calling, I'm doing spoken word for the very first time in my life, and it came out really well. I'm playing trumpet, of course, on it. And it's called Love's Calling. And it's a really killing song. So that's out right now. We're shooting the video for that next week. And of course, we're campaigning for Grammy considerations with those songs. Of course, I just mentioned this one. It's called There Is Nobody, the song that it's the worship song that that I do in all of my shows. It's off of this album, the Mo Jazzin' album, and it's contemporary Christian performance. And I can get people to hear this because I think it's very well deserving, and that's been so the pandemic allowed me to finish the album, really get into it, and we've just been really creative, and I think that the wheels have really been accelerating, with shows. We just started doing shows, and Toledo. We went to Montego Bay, Jamaica.
Okay, I'm
San
jealous
Antonio, and next week I'm going to Mazatlan.
Okay.
That's okay, but next week I'm going to Mazatlan next week.
Right, because I'll be even more jealous. Okay, so I just want to be, I'll carry your hat. I'll be a roadie for you. I can do that.
Oh, Thornell, you're a lifer, dog.
Well, thank you for that. I just try to keep my, skills sharp and my relationships intact. It is always amazing to me. Doesn't matter, if we hadn't talked for years, that when I would see you at an event or
right.
something, it's always been love. And I met you at a time in my life. I'll just be honest. I met you at a time in my life that I was starting to question, if I knew what I was doing. And part of that reason was because every time I would get a job, I would lose it. But it had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with the industry merging and mergers and new people coming in and hiring their own people, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the politics of the industry was such that, there were people who had worked at Motown for 10, 20 years. And here I was coming in and I was just like, am I going to be able to make it 10 minutes? And sure enough, Andre Harrell and his team came in and took over Motown. And that was, for many of us who cherished the music and cherished, the legacy of that company, it was a shock to the system. And we didn't know whether or not we were going to have jobs, and many of us did end up losing our jobs. And whether or not they were going to be good stewards of the brand, if they were going to be good stewards of the repertoire and of the artists. I was lucky enough to be assigned Diana Ross. So for a while, I wasn't going anywhere. But the stuff that was really exciting me was I came out of hip hop in the 90s in New York, was what you were doing with Sean on the Impromptu record. It was just like, okay, so this is my shit.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
It was absolutely all love. And we also, one of your label mates, Blue, who sadly was impacted by COVID, he passed away. And that's so very, very sad.
Blue did? I didn't know that.
Yes, he passed away this spring.
I
did not know that he had died until a month afterwards, when his wife Laura made a post on Instagram saying it's been a month, and I just lost it, because that brother was so sincere and so kind, and I loved his album that was produced by Dwayne Wiggins. It was delicious. That record was amazing.
I mean, we were all there at the same time.
We were all there at the same time. We were all making great music, and we were, changing the world one note at a time. So I just appreciate how much, you impacted my life at that time, because you believed in me and my ideas. So it was great. It was great. And I will always appreciate that about you.
One thing, while we're on this subject, I say this from the deepest part of my heart. When I when I met you at Motown and you worked with us, I mean, you were excellent. You were thorough, excellent. You were the real, I someone is the real deal. And you were the real deal from the very, very start. And of course, you've always been the real deal. So I just really want to just tell you that. I mean, I come to you for advice for a reason. You are the real deal. And hey, man, thank you, man.
Thank you. Thank you. So this has been fun because we've had the opportunity to talk about gospel and jazz and contemporary jazz and your newfound success after the pandemic or during the pandemic and now afterwards, and now you're getting back out on the road and stuff like that. What does your 2022 look like?
Well, it's looking really good already. I'm playing at the Capitol Jazz Cruise. Very big cruise for me. I'm
the people are going to love you.
And it's something that, thank you. And what I'm really excited about is that they're going to have me on the big stage, of course. One of the stars, I don't know who, but they've also asked me for midweek to do my Marvin Meets Miles exclusive show.
Oh, nice.
I just think that's perfect. I think so I'm so excited about that. Because when I do the big show, I'll be doing, impromptu stuff from my Mo Jazzin' album, from the So Hot album, the stuff that I do on the show. Exclusive Marvin Meets Miles show. So that's only going to be the songs from my Marvin Meets Miles album. And I am really, really, really excited.
They're going to follow
that. And of course, I mentioned, yeah. And I also mentioned to you about my brand new book.
That book,
very, very happy about
when it goes on sale, we're gonna have you come back and we're gonna talk about some of these stories in the book, because I know you have some stories that everybody needs to hear.
Okay, well,
is there any scandal?
Oh, yeah, and you're in the book. There's some drama with it, absolutely. I mean, it's the story of my life. It's the story of my life, the story of my journey. And I think that she did an amazing job. I just finished doing a second read of it. And I got, chill bumps and goosebumps. When you know what you've kind of done in your life, but it went by so fast. But when you can see it, especially in a book, and you're like, oh my goodness. Like I just did an interview with Ray Leonard Jr., Sugar Ray Leonard's son. I just did it like yesterday, and he was, I mean, like when he that I've done in my career, he was just like, and I was like, wow. And so you don't really know that much about yourself until people know about yourself.
It's perspective. Mm-hmm.
That's going to happen. All of the there, and of course you are in that book as well, my friend.
Oh my goodness, I'm in the book.
Absolutely.
That's crazy. Well, let me just say this. This is great watching your evolution, your journey. I was, always amazed by, the high points that I know about, everything from being the youngest music director for the Temptations and the story about how that came about. That's going to be in the book, everybody. So you're going to deal with that. But we're absolutely going to have you come back and talk about, some of the lessons from your book, because this is music, media, and culture. And you have absolutely been a contributor to culture for the last 30 years and will continue to be so. I love the fact that you have your kids involved in your music enterprise now, your son Josh, and your daughter, I'm having a brain fart, her name, I'm sorry.
Mariah.
Right. I am, just a beautiful, beautiful thing to see where you are right now and to hear this music that you're creating and that you're, as a solo artist, getting your due. And for many years, I know the reference point was, oh, you remember Impromptu? that day is almost come where they will no longer have to reference impromptu. You know, it's kind of like I was thinking today about how I always referenced Joe Sample as Joe Sample. I never even referenced the Crusaders, the Jazz Crusaders, because he'd become his own entity. And this is what is happening to you. And it's a very proud moment to watch you blossom into a solo artist with your own stature. So congratulations. So, ladies and gentlemen,
that means so much.
to wrap this, Jason, you have anything you want to say?
No, I'm just listening to what's going on here. I love it.
Yes, we're having the Love Fest. And so to close out Impact Music Media and Culture with Johnny Britt and Tammy McCann, I'm going to actually play the Peace Officer video. And I'm gonna edit it on to the end so we have a nice clean edit. So it's thought-provoking. It's a little challenging for people who are on either side of the perspective, whether they're pro-blue or whether they're like defund the police. And so I think it's a sensitive, thoughtful song, and it's something that I think deserves consideration. So I'm glad that you put your pen to paper and your artistry and pulled everybody together to do it, because you know it's not cut and dry. And I'm gonna leave it to the viewers to make their own comments. So once again, thank you so much for being part of this, and we'll have an edit up soon. And until the next time, I bid you adieu.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you guys. Thanks, Ovation Agency. Love you guys. Alicia, Jason, Thornell. Peace.
See y'all.
That concludes our Ovation series for this evening. Thank you for joining us.